Language skills are important to include in your Smart Box training as well. And one thing you can use to do that is a barrier game. So we need some kind of barrier. And what I have here are pieces from a chess set. I also have some pieces from a checker set as well. And what I want to do is use that barrier and set it between me and my child. And behind the barrier, I'm going to set up a scene, and I'm going to describe that as I'm creating it. So I see a king on top of a red checker. And that's the instruction for your child to take the chess pieces and create what I've just described. And then you can confirm that we have the same thing on both sides of the barrier. We want to bring in relational types of words, such as next to and between, those kinds of words to enhance our language skills with a particular barrier task. To make this a harder task, you also want to block your visual cues as you're giving instructions. So I use a napkin or my hand, but a napkin is a good way to do this. As I'm putting up the barrier and I'm giving the instruction, put the black knight next to the red checker, for instance. I'm trying not to give visual cues, so there's really listening that has to happen here. And a paper napkin is an easy way to do that with a barrier game. A different task that works on language skills is a fun one from the cartoon section of your newspaper. Hold on to your newspaper sections for a few weeks so you have a variety to choose from. And the idea is to cut apart a cartoon into its various strips and then have your child create the sequencing that makes that story. I would lay it out for my child and then talk about the language that's included in the cartoon strip. So if it's a very young child, I might need to read the dialogue that's included in the cartoon bubbles. We talk about how do we know which order these go in. And there are certain clues in cartoon strips that you can teach your child about sequencing. Does this one come first or second? And talk about why one comes before the other, for instance. The other clues that we see in cartoon strips, often in the very first panel, there's a question that is asked, so we can look for a question mark to indicate that that's the first panel. There's also something called an ellipse, ... which means my question or my statement is continuing. So that's another little item to look for in a cartoon, and that will help you to determine, which panel comes next in the series within the cartoon. Language sequencing is really important, and this cartoon strips can help your child to understand sequencing. Choose games from your game shelf to enhance language skills in your Smart Box. You'll want to choose games that play with the sounds of words, and include your lowercase letter tiles to create crossword puzzle answers and sentence construction. We want to work on various areas of language, so you might work on verbs or nouns or something like that. But use those lowercase letter tiles to spell the words out. But play with language. Have a good time with it and laugh a little bit about how interesting our English language is.